Hi everybody, it's Joni Young here. Welcome back to my channel for another painting tutorial in acrylics. Today I've got a pretty winter landscape that I want to share with you all, and I'm going to go through all the supplies right now. Just before I do that, make sure that you're subscribed to my channel. Many of you think that you have already subscribed, but you'll be surprised to find out that you're not actually subscribed yet. It's free, and when you subscribe to my channel, you're going to be notified every time I post a new video, so then you don't have to worry about missing out on anything. So today I'm working on a 16 by 20 double primed and stretched canvas. Now when I say double primed, I purchased it already primed from the store in the package, and it's been primed with acrylic gesso. If you are working with a lower grade canvas that's a little less expensive, it may not be primed professionally, so you may want to invest in getting a little bottle of acrylic gesso. You can also make it very affordably at home with a few ingredients in your cupboards. So once it's all primed with gesso, you want to make sure that it's dry, and if it's a little bumpy, be sure to sand it lightly beforehand unless you want a texture on your painting. And we're going to go through the colors I'm using for this painting today. I should mention what we're painting today. I'm doing like a black and white with multiple tones of gray winter landscape with a little cabin and some trees and a sun, maybe some mountains in the distance, maybe a little creek, a fence. You know, I like to do these kind of on the spot without planning too much ahead. I find it more enjoyable to just sit and create without having a reference photo to go by or without planning it. That way it feels more like playtime to me and feels more creative and intuitive. So I've got titanium white, and I've also got some luminous yellow, luminous orange, luminous red. Now the Luminous series are a neon paint that I'm using. However, you don't have to have neon paints to paint along with me today. Just use any warm colors that you want. These are going to be for the light in the little house and also the berries. So I'm going to be painting some holly berries. I'll be using the color for the holly berries and some Hooker's Green Hue Permanent, and you can use any green that you want. I've also got some Mars Black. I'm going to be using the black to create my darkest colors and shadows and contrast with, also mixing it with white to create all the shades of gray. And let's go over the brushes now I'm going to be using for this tutorial. I've got a number 50, just a large filbert brush. Now I'm just going to be using this to paint my canvas gray with first, so you can use any large brush. It doesn't necessarily have to be a filbert brush. I've also got a number 20 flat brush I'll be using for some larger areas as well, maybe creating some flat areas, maybe my cabin. I haven't decided how big I want my cabin to be yet, or a little house or cottage, whatever little building you want to add or want it to be. And then I've also got a number 4 filbert brush. I'm planning on using this for the leaves on our holly, and any other little areas that I might need it for, maybe the sun, if this is a nice size for the sun. And then for some smaller details like the windows and trim and the chimney and the berries, little lines in the leaves, I'm going to be using my number 3 round brush for details. So I've also got a little mop brush here I'm going to be using. This is a really pretty little iridescent crystal handled mop brush. I've got a bunch of sets of these that I'm going to be giving out to my top tier Patreon members the month of December. So if you're not a Patreon member yet and you're thinking about joining, I would choose that top tier if you're going to join, because you'll also be getting an original painting from me. You'll be getting a signed art print of mine. I can critique your paintings and connect with you one-on-one and give you lots of advice and answer all your questions. On top of that, you get full access to all the tutorials on my Patreon. So I'll have a link below for that where you can join. December's a great month because it's the month of gift giving. So put that on your Christmas wish list. And that being said, let's go ahead and get started with this painting. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water to my canvas and using my large brush here. Just going to wet the canvas down a bit with water because it really helps the canvas take the paint better. And you'll find that your paint goes a lot further this way. You can blend better. You won't struggle as much. And I like to mention this whenever I'm doing this, which is most of the time. at the beginning of my videos, because it's one of those little tips that have big results and really help you not get so frustrated when you're learning how to paint. So now that it's a little bit wet everywhere, I'm going to take some white and a little bit of black. More white than black, because black is really strong and we don't want this to be too dark. So I'm just going to start going around the edges and curving around. Let's take a little bit more. And create an oval here. I'm going to make this just a little darker. Just easing into that black so I don't accidentally add too much. I'll just keep going inside that oval, making it smaller and smaller. Then I'm just going to wipe the excess off. Just an old towel rag here, just wiping the excess paint off. Then I'm going to go into my white. Get a decent amount on the end of my brush. I'm going to line it up halfway. So you got half of that brush and paint on the gray where you left off and half of it on the unpainted canvas. So we're just going to go around, and this is how you gradiate and blend your acrylics. So see how it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter? Now if we want it to be just a little darker, just go back, work your way out into that gray, and then bring it back in. I'm going to add just a little bit more black now. Get these corners. I haven't rinsed my brush out and the paint is still wet. And just adding that little spray of water on the canvas at the beginning has really helped us get this done quickly, easily, making the process of painting more enjoyable. We all want to be happier and enjoy the process when we're painting, right? That's what it's all about. So you don't need to go out and get any fancy mediums to add to your acrylics. People ask me all the time what I'm mixing with my acrylics, and I'm just using a little bit of water. So now I'm going to rinse my brush out. I'm going to dry this off completely, and then I'm going to start coming in with the sun and the background trees and forest. Okay, now that it's all dry, we're going to start coming in with our background trees, forest area on either side here. We're going to have some trees like this that are kind of going with the curve just to create more atmosphere here and some mood and make it look a little dreamy like. So we'll be adding some trees that go kind of on a curve, larger on either side, and then they're going to get smaller and smaller to create some distance and help draw our eyes into the center here. We're going to set this entire scene off with some beautiful little holly berries and leaves here, and I think that's going to really bring this all together and look like a Christmas card, like a vintage Christmas card. You guys know I love Christmas and vintage nostalgic Christmases that really touch your heart and bring back memories of your childhood. So with just a little bit of water on my 20 flat brush, you need to have it wet, the water in there, to really help the paint flow. I'm going to start with some black, a little bit of white, and we're making another shade of gray, but this is going to be a darker one. Now I also have this little mini spray bottle here. It has a finer mist to it, so if you're having trouble with your acrylic paints drying out too quickly, like most of us, it really helps to just finely mist your palette with a little bit of water, like maybe every 10 minutes or so, as often as you need. But I just want a little bit of water to add to thin my paint out a bit, because it's really going to help the paint flow for this next brush technique. So on the side here, we're just gonna add a little line right about here and one right about here. So find the center, the middle of your canvas, just eyeballing it, it's right here, and then go down, I would say 1.5 inches, and that will be your little line. And then we're gonna just add a little line that goes up like that towards the center. Now this is drying out so fast, I'm gonna add a little bit more water again. And I'm gonna start with the end of my brush, gently pulling up. Then they're gonna get smaller and smaller. Mix up a little bit more paint here. I'm gonna crisscross to mix up and load my brush. Still need a little bit of water. This time I'm just gonna spray the canvas, and that works well too. As long as you go over it right away. If you don't, it's gonna leave spots, water spots on your canvas, and you don't want that. Okay, we're gonna start over here now. Once you get the hang of it, you can be a little bit more carefree. Smaller and smaller back here. We are going to have a little mountain in here somewhere. I'm going to make that work and fit that in. I'm going to take a little bit more black because I'm trying to make this show up here, and it's dark, the same color as the gray, so I need to add some more black to make that show up. Okay, we'll just bring some taller trees up here, turning my brush this way now. Kind of on an angle like this and going with that curve. Now I'm going to take a little bit more white again. Crisscross to load. No globs of paint on my brush. I want you guys to notice that, because how you load your brush makes such a big difference. So what I'm going to do is just kind of sweep down here. I'm going to sweep down and create a little bank, a little slope that comes down here, and then maybe we'll have a little creek. I don't know yet. I'm excited because I don't know what this is going to turn into. That freaks some people out when they don't have a plan, but sometimes you just got to let go and trust in the moment and your imagination, and just have fun, not knowing what's going to come next, and excited for what's to come. Okay, I'll take a little bit more of the gray, darker gray. Okay, so what I want to do is take my little filbert brush. I'm going to take some white, no water at all, and I'm going to add my sun. And I know we've got this glowing background already and it's pretty light, but when I add this white, it's going to be even brighter here. So just a little bit of white. And now we've got a really pretty glowing sun. Now you can, I always say this in my videos because it could be a moon too. If you want yours to be a night scene, then it can be a nighttime scene. But what I want to do is come in with the leftover white on my brush and go around pushing like flat with the belly of the brush, adding some clouds in here, going up, circles, not taking my brush off the canvas the entire time. Let's add a few up here. Gentle little pushes, blending that paint out. Different sizes. Now, as we get into this area where it's a lot lighter, we can add a little bit more gray, and that will show up a bit better. Then you could also come in with some bright white and go underneath, but I think it shows up just fine. Okay, we'll add a little bit more in here, just a few little clouds. We are going to be coming in with our trees, and I also want to add a mountain somewhere. I'm just going to go around the outside here with a little bit of that gray that's in my brush, just a little bit here, just really tinting my white with some gray. That's going to make my sun stand out a little bit more. And then a dab of bright white in the center. I'm going to add a little bit more white in here. Soften this cloud just a tiny bit. And I want to come in and start adding a mountain. I'm just going to thin my paint out a bit, mist my palette with some water. Get a medium to dark gray going on here. Again, no globs of paint. And I'm just going to come in on an angle here. Bring that up a little higher. I'm going to take a little bit of white now. And add a peak up top here and then come down this side. I'm going to add another little mountain here. Smaller one that comes down into a valley here, and maybe that's the water way back there comes down and we'll get a little creek in here, but I want to continue with these mountains first before I do anything else. So I'm just rinsing my brush out now, drying it off. It's just a little bit damp, just damp enough from washing it out, and I'm going to soften just back and forth, loosening some of that paint off. You'll see how we have patches, sections here that we started off with that are darker. So that's going to give us those ridges on our mountain, lighter and darker areas. Gotta work a little harder on this one here because paint's starting to dry. I'm going to take just a little bit more of my gray and just go over the edge a little bit more there so it doesn't look fuzzy. Okay, now we're going to take white, and I've got a little bit more white on the end of my brush to work with, and we're going to start adding a little bit of snow in between these peaks here. I don't like to cut my mountains right in half for light and dark sides. Now the light is here, our light source, our sun, or maybe it's a moon if you want it to be moon, but it looks more interesting when you have one side more visible than the other. So I kind of go over and I'll bring, in this case, the right side, I'll bring it over more to the left. And then I'm going to add a little bit here as well. Then I'm going to go into my black. Mix that up to make a dark, dark shade again, and I'm going to go right against that white snow on the mountain and pull diagonally towards the left. This is just going to help exaggerate the shadows on the mountain. And I'm going to take a little bit more and add it at the base of these trees here. Okay, so now what I want to do is start coming in with some branches on the trees. I'm going to be using my 3 round brush. You can use any detail liner brush you want for this. And I'm going to miss this again. If you're just tuning in now and wondering what's in this bottle, it's just water, and I'm just keeping my palette wet and using it to thin my paint out where and when I need to. Okay, so just a little bit of water, black and white to make a dark, dark gray shade. And I'm going to start coming up and adding some branches and tree trunks. We've got a few tree trunks there already. Now you're going to need a lot of patience if you're working with a detail brush, because they're so small, they don't hold a lot of paint or water. So you don't want to use too much pressure, otherwise you're going to use all of that paint and water in one spot. So just a little bit of pressure, and just add a few little wiggly lines for some branches. We're going to be going over these with our mop brush for some treetops and some snow. We're going to set these mountains back even further in the distance by coming in front of them and adding the trees with some snow on them. But see, I'm just being really carefree and not spending too much time on my branches because I know we're going to be going over most of them. And there's no reason to spend too much time on them. Okay, I'll add a few little more in here. Some smaller ones. Get smaller and smaller. You can start with your smaller ones in the background first if you want and work your way here. Doesn't really matter. Again, keeping with this curve here. And just a little twist and roll and pull with a brush. And as I get over to this area here, I'm adding more black like I did before because the background is darker and I want it to show up. You could also use a lighter shade of gray if you wanted, so just add more white. If that's the look you're going for, that would be pretty too. I'm going to pull a few more branches on this side. Okay, and I'm just rinsing my brush out, going in for a little bit more white this time. And I'm going to soften. Let's take a little bit more white still. Still a little bit too dark. Just going to soften and bring this in a little bit closer. I mean, we're going to have our little cabin in here somewhere too, so some of these trees are bound to get covered up at some point. Okay, so now we've got our dark first base coat for our trees. I'm going to add a little bit of light gray for some lighter tones on them. I'll just start back here, and I'm just going to concentrate on mainly the bigger branches and the tree trunks. Just to give a little bit of light. Might be some snow on the branches and the trees. See how I let it go a little bit lumpy like that? Okay, now we're going to come in with the mop brush. My favorite part, because I absolutely love these mop brushes and tapping with them. And if you're just tuning in now at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I've got a bunch of sets that I'm going to be giving out to my top tier Patreon members, along with an original painting and a signed print. So check out the link below if you're not a Patreon member yet, or if you're an existing Patreon member and you want to upgrade to the top tier level, you can also do that. So no water at all on my brush. I'm going to take just a little bit of black, a little bit of white, and we're just going to make a shade of gray. Not a lot of paint. You don't want globs of paint on your brush for this. And let's start at the back, little taps, because we're painting these in layers. It didn't matter with the tree trunks, but it does with this step. And then we'll come in front with this one. Okay, so that's our first base coat. And we'll come in on this side now. Just a little tap tap. And then start to layer over. I'm going to take a fresh brush, a fresh clean brush, because that one has too much gray in it and too much paint now, and I've got a clean one here. No water again, just white only. Okay, I'm going to start way back here, just a little bit. What you want to do is apply a little bit of pressure on an angle, and you just want to add a little bit to part of those branches, part of the gray. And I'm going to add some extra ones here in the front. And we're just going to keep going. You'll know when you need to reload your brush, but just gently pull and don't apply too much paint to your brush. Otherwise, you're going to be left with solid big globs. You're not going to get a nice soft look that you want for your snow-covered branches here. So I'm going to add a few little extra ones just down here. And now I want to come in and add a little creek that comes down in here. I'm going to start with my flat brush for this, and I'm going to take some black, start off with black, a little bit of water in here. And just add a little bit. Now there's a bit of height here on either side, and this looks like it's starting level. So we're probably going to have, there's probably a little waterfall back here that drops down. So all you do is just flick down a little bit like this. And it's really small because it's farther away and we're creating perspective. So then I'm going to use the full width of my brush now. I was just using just the corner back there for the smaller areas. And then we're going to just create some movement creek or a little river, and then really widen this down here and bring it off to the left. And just like that, we've got a little creek or riverbed. Now I'm going to go on the left side with some black and just bring out the contrast and shadows a little bit better on these trees that are closest to us. Again, just a little bit of black. I'm going to take a little bit of white now, and I'm going to softly sweep in a little bit of light, a little frost, a little light inside the center of the water. Rinsing my brush out, I'm going to take a little bit of white on just the corner of my brush, and I mean, this is just so far away we can barely see it, but I'm creating little drops of waterfalls back here by just lightly going over and doing the same technique, a little pull and drop. Take just a little bit more just on the end of my brush. And right here, we're going to go over and drop. Add another one right here. And then just cut off the bottom of it because I don't want it to be a really big drop. I want this to be fairly, a little bit more black, fairly low creek bed with just a few little trickling waterfalls. Something just really gentle. And I'm going to take my filbert brush, a little bit of gray, and I'm just going to add a few little shadows here. Along the edges. Take a little bit of white in with that. You'll see where we have these shadows coming down. We can have those meet. Okay, then I'm going to do the opposite and add some extra light. So I'm going to take some white. I'm just going to go over some of these areas. And I'm going to make it kind of rounded like that. Just a little bit more light hitting some of these areas. There's just so much that you can do with a limited palette of black and white. And if you wanted, you could do the same scene, the same effect with another color. You could just use a really dark blue and white. I'm just going to go over this. I might even pick up some of the paint is still wet. I just want to make this a little blurry. Actually, it's drying pretty quickly. A little bit of blurriness going on back here. Set it even further back in the distance. Got a little bit of mist on our mountain here. Completely covered up that mountain. See, that's how you know I'm not planning these paintings out, because I end up going over some things that I started off with. But that's all part of the process and of being an intuitive painter and just painting on the spot. Maybe, I mean, we know that it's there. That's the point. We're telling a story through painting. We know that it's there. And then if we follow a path and go around the corner, it's gonna be visible to us. Okay, just softening that. That'll dry a little bit darker. It'll be a little bit more visible once it's dry. And I think that we're ready to start coming in with our little cabin. And you know, I think I'm feeling pretty comfortable. This brush is feeling comfortable to me, and I think it's the right size. So I'm gonna start coming in with the cabin, and I'm gonna take some black and white, no surprise. And I'm gonna start off with a dark gray. So I'm gonna place my cabin right in here, and I'm gonna add a little slant like this, a little slant here, so like a triangle, but I'm kind of rounding out the edges of it. And then I'm gonna come right down like that, and then I'm gonna go across and add a rectangle. So we've got a triangle at the top, square on the bottom, rectangle this way. We're gonna add the roof, slant and scoop, and then we're gonna slightly go down and then bring it back up. This just exaggerates the lines and adds a little bit more character to our little cottage. Going to take some white and we're going to add some snow on our roof. I want to bring my roof line down a little lower. Take a little bit more just on the end of my brush here. And add just a thicker amount right there on the front. And then we'll have a little set of stairs, just a few little lines like this coming down here. And then have a little path that comes somewhere down in here. Now we're going to add our berries, our holly berries as well, so that'll probably go over part of our little path. I'm going to take a little bit more white. I'm going to add a little bit of light around the path, help make it look like the snow's been stepped on and it goes down in that spot in the shade, right? The light's not hitting it. I'm going to rinse this brush out and I'm going to be using my little round one for some smaller details now, like the windows, the chimney. But I'm going to just start with a little bit of gray. And I'm going to add some lines. I'll first add a little dot, dot, dot here for a cabin, for like logs, the ends of the logs. And then I'm going to just come across, need a little bit of water on here. And then I'm going to use a little bit more black. To add a shadow inside the roof line there. And right underneath for shadow under the roof line. And some lines for those logs. Let's add a little chimney right here. A little shadow. A few little dabs along there. I'm going to take some white and I'm going to add a little dab snow here on the left side of the chimney. I'm going to add some more snow. I just dried this off a little bit so that I can come in and add some more details without interfering with the black. So I'm going to add a little bit extra light on part of the roof here. I'm going to add a few little snow-covered steps. Little dab on the corners. We've got a few little icicles hanging. Just a little gentle pull and flick. I don't think our smoke from our chimney is really going to show up, but I'm going to add a little bit of white here. Oh, it does kind of show up, doesn't it? Okay, so now I want to add some windows. And I'm going to actually start with my door here. I'm going to have a little light in my door. I'll have a little window here and a loft. And I'll add 1, 2, 3. I always add 3. Ever since I started painting little cabins, I always added 3 windows, and I've been painting my little houses like this the same way for years. I would tell everybody the reason why I do 3 is because for a room for each of my kids, my 3 kids. I need to start painting mansions soon because my family is growing. I'm going to be a grandma again for the 2nd time. I'm very, very excited about that. And I just want to add a little bit of a trickle of water here with the white just to make this show up a little bit better. Just adding a few little lines and wiggles in here. I'm going to take some of my luminous yellow now, mix that up with some white, and get just a little ball of paint on the end. I'm going to dab that in my windows. And let's just have a little bit of this light reflecting on the snow and the steps. You want to make sure that I'm going to rinse my brush out again. I've got a little bit of gray in there. I want to make sure that you have white you're mixing with the yellow so that it dries nice and soft. You want it to dry this color, because yellows over grays and blacks can end up drying, resulting like in a gray, greenish shade, or even brown, depending on the shade of black you're using. The temperature, same with the orange or yellow. This does look like it's more of an orange shade. I'm gonna just add a little bit of warmth to my sun here. I think this would look really pretty. Just a little bit. Little hints of warmth. Beautiful gold. Okay, I want to start painting a little fence, and so I'm gonna take some black, water this down, thin the paint out, and just have it on the end of my brush. And I'm going to start here with the first little fence post. And then I'm going to start to make them shorter and shorter. And there's probably one that's going to be over here, but I think we might cover up part of that when we come in with our holly and berries. I'm going to add an old little twisted wire just through here. I'm gonna make a little shadow. At the base of these little fence posts. And we've also got a little pathway here. I'll just take this out. And I'm going to add some snow. Take some white. And we'll add a little bit of white here and there. Making it kind of lumpy and not evenly coating any one of these. I don't want the snow to look too neat and tidy. I'll just blend this out, take a little bit of that off. Okay, I think I'm going to add a little lamppost in here because I'm feeling like I just want to bring a little bit more warmth and invite the viewer in a little bit more here. It's feeling just a little bit lonely to me. You guys might like it like this, and especially when we start to come in and cheer this up a little bit more with some holly and the holly berries and the leaves. But I'm going to start off with a line right here. We'll add a little lamppost. You can just add one wherever you want. It's our own little winter wonderland that we're making. We're telling the story and making the story up. So you can do whatever you want. I'm going to add a little bit of pale yellow light around here. We'll have it coming down here and even a little bit in the water. Just a little bit of light glistening in the water here. With my flat brush, it's a little bit damp. Just gonna gently move this around, blend it out a little bit. So going in both directions like this can give you a little bit more of a reflective look. Okay, now I'm going to take some black and I'm going to bring that inside and make the body of the lamppost wider here at the base. Now, although this is on a slant, our lamppost has to sit up straight. So ignore that diagonal and just paint your base straight. Just adding kind of 2 levels here of flat ovals. I'm going to add a little line here at the top. I'm going to add a wider one. And back over to my round brush, I'm going to paint the lid. So I want the top to come out on an angle like this, up on the left, up on the right. And then we're going to paint a little triangle inside of that. And then I like to add just a little circle on the top and then a little line. You can make your with another little triangle on the top. You can make your lanterns, lampposts, however you like. I always like adding a little something different to each one. Okay, so then I'll just go over everything again. And then I'm going to add another little decorative line here. I'm going to take some white and yellow and I'm going to go over the base and around, make it look like it's in, there's snow covering up the base of this lamppost. I'm going to dry it off and then add the light inside of it. Okay, so I'm going to start with yellow and white. And I'm going to come inside here and then start working it around, slightly going over the black outline. That'll give us just a little bit more shadow areas within that lampshade. And then I'm going to mix up some of the luminous orange with the yellow. And I'm going to go around the edges, just kind of dabbing around. I'll add a little bit of white right inside. And then a little bit more yellow and white. brighten everything up. I'm gonna add a little bit of that soft yellow. I worked most of the paint out of my brush, and I'm gonna come up inside here and just add a little sweep. I'm gonna add a little highlight. I'm gonna scoop from this corner up, scoop up, and then down here from the end, pull over. I'm gonna take a little bit of black and just go inside these ends. A little bit of black and orange. Add a few light lines. Nothing too dark. And then just a little line right above this darker one on the bottom. Okay, I think we're ready to start coming in with our holly and berries, or holly berries and our leaves. I'm going to start with the leaves first, and if my green hasn't dried, nope, it's still good. I'm going to come in with some green, just a little bit of black. We'll make a darker shade of green first. Let's just bring it over here. Mix that up. And yeah, we'll have a few little leaves. We'll start using the end of our brush, scoop, 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 and then bring it in. Something like that. It doesn't have to be super fancy. And then we'll have some more here. Sneak another little one right back in here. Add just a tiny bit of green just to have that on the water, just a little hint of that. Okay, I'm going to take some white now, add that in with my green. And I'm going to come inside. Okay, just rinsing that brush out. I'm going to take some white now, and I'm going to add little dabs of snow on the outer edges. Okay, we'll just follow through with this one, do the same thing. We're still gonna have our little berries for a beautiful pop of red. Okay, I'm gonna add just a few simple lines with my round brush here in the dark black green. Starting from the center, pulling and flicking over to those point areas. This helps to add a few more shadows as well. Okay, without washing my brush out, I'm going to take some red. There's a little bit of that green and black in there, and that'll give us a nice deep dark base color. And just add a bunch of little circles for your berries. Okay, then I'm going to take my luminous red and paint inside so that some of them are a little bit brighter, have a little bit of light on them, because this is all going to dry a little bit darker. We don't want it to dry too bright. We just want to have this be a little garnish to our painting, just embellishing it with a little pop of color. Gonna add a little bit of white for some snow on the tops of these. I may pick up a little bit of the red, but that's okay. It'll just kind of give it a pretty pinky frosted look. So I'm just dabbing some white on top. I'm going to add just a little bit of light here. Back over with a clean brush, my yellow and white mixture. Okay, so I'm just going to finish off the door here. Take a little bit of black and just add a little rectangle door, a little line under those windows. We can frame them in too if we want. An extra little dab of black under the roof. Paint that door in. And add just a little bit more black there on our lantern. Okay, this painting's all done. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I want to wish you and your family and loved ones a beautiful holiday season. Merry Christmas from mine to yours. See you soon in another video. Bye!